Okay, this video is going to be a little bit of a rant. If you don't want to watch it, you're welcome to just click away right now. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about how people claim they're self-made and share with you guys a little bit about my background. And so you can understand my actual beginnings and you can use that as a benchmark to set realistic and understandable expectations. Now, the first thing I'm going to bring up here is people like Luke Belmar and Iman Gadzhi who sell you this idea that they are a complete come-up story and, they were in the mud grinding and, they worked hard so they were able to make it out. You guys may or may not have seen this video already showing Luke Belmar's past and where he actually comes from. And this video kind of exposed that he was lying about a lot of that. Like, I think he lied about hiding his identity and real name. He lied about the type of work that he was doing in the past to make it seem like he was doing like the dirty, dishwashing jobs when in reality he had an okay job before. And yeah, this is definitely not the first story of someone trying to like make their past seem a lot more difficult than it really was, so that when they became successful, it really feels like they did it all themselves and there wasn't anything helping them. And so with my channel, I just want to clear one thing up from the very beginning. People are going to be clipping this when I'm 60 years old. Okay, I'm 20 years old right now. I am not a come up story at all. I come from one of the most privileged circumstances you could possibly even come from. Now, first of all, before I even get into my specific privilege, let's start with the privilege that we all have, which is the fact that we are now living in a time in human history, pretty much the only time ever after hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution, we're in the tiny 100 to 300 year period where there's some countries where everyone isn't dying and starving. Okay, so that's first of all. If you're watching this video right now, you're probably not starving to death. There's probably no famine in this country. You're probably not dying of an illness currently. And for most of human history, we never got to enjoy this. If you take a look at time prices, and if you don't know what this means, a time price is basically how much a resource cost in terms of the amount of time it would take to work to make that money. So just to illustrate this, there's this wonderful website that lets you see what the time price is of pretty much any good. So we can look at bread, for example, in 1919 and look at the ratio of how much 1 pound of bread was compared to how much a US unskilled worker made. And so a pound of bread was 10 cents in 1919 and an unskilled worker in the US made 25 cents an hour. Compare this with 2024 where a pound of bread is $1.58, but the average unskilled worker makes $17 an hour. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the time price of bread, or the amount of time it would take you to work to afford 1 pound of bread, is 77% cheaper. And this is true for pretty much all goods. So for the past 100 years, we have all been experiencing decreasing time prices for pretty much every good that exists. So we are all privileged, okay? Everything is getting cheaper in terms of the amount of work you have to do to acquire that good. The standards of living have been improving across the board. And for one of the first times in human history, everyone isn't starving, getting sick, and dying. And now you got a little device that you're watching this video on, so we're all privileged. First things first. Secondly, but with all that out of the way, that doesn't take away from the fact that there's vast inequality in the world today still. And even within being in a privileged era, some people are still way more privileged than others, and I am certainly part of that group. I was born in the United States. Pretty rare place to be born. 4.22% of the entire earth is born here. I was born in the US, speaking English. That already puts me in a pretty privileged place compared to most of the world, okay? Now, on top of that, I was born in New York City, okay? People from all over the world work their whole life to try to move to New York City or try to make whatever they can to try to live here. I was born there. So again, extremely privileged. Then, on top of that, I was born to two pretty well-off parents. Obviously, not gonna get into all of their exact financials, but my dad's a lawyer, and my parents generously paid for me to go to private school, starting in elementary school all the way until high school, and are now still paying for me to go to college right now. And I go to Cornell. You can look up what that costs. So that's my life, okay? I was born in a 1% time period for humans to even be alive. Luckily, that's something we all share. But on top of that, I was born in a 1% country, in a 1% city, to a 1% family. So on my entrepreneurship journey, I've had pretty much every advantage that someone could even possibly have. And I want you guys to know this because I don't want you guys to think that I'm some dude who, made it out and like had this come up story. That is not my story. But with that being said, I feel like the reason that I'm willing to be open about this when other people aren't is because I still believe that even if you're given everything, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to build skills and talents the same way that I have. So for example, I went to a private school with tons of kids that were at least as privileged, and most of them were actually way more privileged than I was. Yet so far, I see that I'm able to get results that they still aren't able to get. So what does that mean? Well, it means that even if you're given every advantage in the world, that doesn't mean you're actually necessarily going to realize any of the gains that you could make unless you stay dedicated and you apply yourself right. And so I don't see it as something that I have to hide that I was privileged. There's plenty of people who are privileged and they still don't achieve the things that I'm able to achieve. achieve. So that's number one. Number two is on my entire entrepreneurship journey, I never used my parents' money to fund any of the entrepreneurial stuff that I did. So all of the things that I did started for free, and I only funded new entrepreneurial projects out of the money that I had made starting from my free thing. So the first thing that I started, and again, I started this completely for free, was my juggling account. And yeah, I literally just used my phone and my juggling balls to post videos of myself juggling online. I did this for free, didn't pay for editing, didn't pay for anything until it made its first dollar online. Then I used that money to reinvest. Now granted, obviously the skill of juggling partially comes from the fact that my parents were willing to pay for juggling lessons when I was a kid. But again, all I'm saying is I didn't use their money to start this side hustle. So yeah, I had a lot of advantages, but I certainly don't think that you need to be born from money to be able to have made money in the ways that I made money. You need good critical thinking, you need talent. Yes, you'll need all of that, but you won't need dollars. You can start the side hustles that I started with $0 in your bank account. And then the third thing that I wanted to hit on is that I'm saying all this stuff to set realistic expectations, but I want to say one more thing, which is a point that Alex Hormozi makes, which is that every single position has some advantages and some disadvantages. And don't get me wrong, if I had to choose which position I would be born into, I would choose this one. But all I'm going to say for people watching who weren't born with the privilege that I have is that you have to look at the cards you're dealt and play the absolute best hand. And so the best privilege that I was born with in my entrepreneurial journey wasn't even just the education that I was able to get, but it's the fact that I can take infinite risks and I don't have to worry about it at all. I could put all my money into the riskiest investment ever and lose all of it, and I know that no matter what happened, I would be fed, I would be housed, and realistically, my education would be paid for on top of all of that. Those are the advantages I have, but the advantages that you might have is that if you have nothing to lose. Someone poorer than me, someone born to a less well-off family than me, can take bigger risks. Like one thing that someone who was born to a less fortunate family has that I never will is the fact that they will have to make it. I don't have to make anything work. My personal YouTube channel could flop, my YouTube Shorts automations channels could flop, and I'll be perfectly fine. I don't need these things to work. It's something that I really enjoy. It's something that I really want to make work, but I don't need it to work. And I think you are a different person when you need something to work. I never had that. That's an advantage that other people have over me. Secondly, I probably won't take as crazy risks as someone who is less fortunate than me. If I take a risk, I'm putting everything I've built on the line. My reputation, the education that my family was able to get me, all of that. For me, it's no doubt that I have more risk aversion because of all of those things. A less fortunate person pretty much has nothing to prove. No one in their family is going to be confused if they take a risk and it doesn't work. No one's going to be surprised if they fail at a side hustle and don't graduate college. And there's no expectations on them to at least hit a certain minimum. So someone in that position can take risks that someone like me probably could never take. Now again, don't listen to this and think, oh, why is he trying to pretend like being born less fortunate would be better? I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying there are advantages to that position, just like there are advantages to the position that I was born into. And again, we're all dealt random cards and we have to play them. Okay, I was not born the most attractive man on earth, but I did happen to have a fascination with how social media worked. So instead of playing my cards to trying to become a model, I played the cards that I had to build a huge social media following. And this is how you have to view the world. Life isn't fair. Some people are going to be born in positions that are way ahead of you. There are people who went to my high school who are born in positions that even compared to me are way higher. And what I can't do is say, oh, they have $100 million to invest and I only have some portion of that, so I'll never be what they are. I have to go, what things do I have that they don't? What unique advantages come with the position that I'm in that they don't have access to? And how could I use that to the absolute maximum degree? And that's what I think is the best realistic view that you can take. Understand that a lot of these gurus online may be underemphasizing how much their parents and their upbringing actually led to their success. I'm willing to be transparent that in my case, I know it gave me an immense advantage, but understand that every position comes with a unique advantage. And if you're resourceful enough, you can make the absolute most out of the advantages that you were granted at birth. I hope that makes sense, and I hope it sets realistic expectations. I'm not a come-up story. I came from a very privileged family. I feel no need to lie about it, but I still think that no matter who you are, understand that we're born in one of the most privileged eras on earth to even be alive. And beyond that, understand that whatever card you were dealt is the one you have, and you have the chance to make the most of the cards that you were dealt, and do your best to make the most of them. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video, and peace.